must send more paramedics.
Sätter vi ställer upp på hytten. Hallå? Hallå? Fan, skicka lag på mig! Selvfølgelig lag på det, høres ut som du har flytta det! Fan, säg då! Se på Bjørn på terrorister! Se att de står och skruvar på en svär jävla rakett, då kommer de med helikopter och hela... Så ställer du upp helt tom på batterierna!
It could look like someone you know, or it could be a stranger in a crowd. Whatever helps it get close to you.
Coming apart! Oh, Mother of God, I'm coming apart!
Coming to you undead from Elm Street in fictional Haddonfield with a beautiful view of Crystal Lake, the podcast where every day is Friday the 13th and every night is Halloween. You are listening to Blood, Guts, and Blu-ray with your hosts Bloodbath and Brett667, the neighbor of the beast.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Blood, Guts, and Blu-ray. My name is Bloodbath.
And I'm Brett667, the neighbor of the beast.
We will not be referring to ourselves as horror business like we did in the first episode, because there's already a show called Horror Business. We're such jerks.
You know what? We gave it our all, though.
Of course. Hopefully we didn't confuse too many people, but we begin anew as Blood, Guts, and Blu-ray. We do appreciate some of the feedback that we've been getting, so we implore you to hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, email us if you got Tumblr. That's sort of our home base, but you don't have to have Tumblr to view the Tumblr page, which is pretty cool. And you can review us on iTunes. Also, there's an app. It's I think we got a couple people on this app that I use. It's called Horror Amino. All the big, I guess the long title is Horror Amino, and we're on there as well. So basically, you're mainly talking to me because I linked it through my own Facebook, but whatever. So Brett, how have you been since last we spoke?
I'm doing really good, actually. I'm really excited about this podcast because there was a lot that I enjoyed about these movies, and I've actually been kind of itching to talk about them a little bit more, and I've had to withhold the I want to call Brian right now and be like, oh my god, you have no idea what I just watched.
I feel yeah, definitely. I've been, since we finished the first one and been getting such a good response, I'm like, oh, maybe we should do another one now. So have you been watching anything horror related on TV or reading anything horror related or anything?
I have not. I've been starting to dig a little bit more into researching the horror movies before and after to kind of get some tidbits and some more important information. But I feel like I'm kind of infected. There's this itch on the back of my neck and it won't go away. And I'm starting to think more and more yeah, I kind of want to look more into this horror thing. I kind of want to see what else is coming out. But it's just a scratch right now.
So just before we get started with some of these movies, and I really am excited to talk with you about these movies. I've been excited all week. I hope this podcast goes well.
I'll do everything I can to derail it. So,
so there's a couple things on Netflix that are worth checking out. I didn't realize that they made a series about Dusk Till Dawn. I watched the first episode. It was pretty good. It just started. It's not the movie, but it was pretty good. Also, not really horror related, but worth checking out if you haven't already. I mean, the show's blowing up now. Mr. Robot. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I have, actually, and believe it or not, the main actor is in a very bad, amazing horror video game. So I've actually seen him in that before I've actually seen Mr. Robot, which I actually want to watch.
What game was he in?
Before Dawn.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that game. Okay.
I've watched some gameplays of it, and it is hysterically wonderful.
Awesome. And what else do I have here? Oh, so real quick, yesterday was Glenn Danzig from the Misfits' birthday.
Okay.
That's kind of horror related, right? He turned 60. It's kind of awesome. So happy birthday to Glenn.
Happy birthday, Glenn.
We're Misfits fans here.
Didn't he just release a new album?
He released a terrible full-length
Skeletons,
album.
Skeletons or something. It's all covers.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Hey, man, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Glenn. Your fucking album sucked. And what was it? Oh, so that movie Neon Demon comes out tonight. Have you heard about that?
I've been seeing a lot of promos for it, actually.
So all the reviews I've read say it's a masterpiece. So I have
really?
I have to see it. And a little bit of sad news. Anton Yelkin died this week. Do you know? You're familiar with that story?
Yes, it's a tragic way to die. It's very unfortunate.
So our hearts go out to him and his family. He's actually in a horror movie that's out in theaters right now. It's called Green Room. It's basically about a bunch of punks that have to fight skinheads. It's fucking looks awesome. I'm so sad that he's no longer with us. So with that being said, let's move on to some of these movies. We're going to be talking about Return of the Living Dead tonight. We're going to be talking about Dead Snow.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about It Follows. And but first, we're going to talk about the Amityville Horror. It was directed by Stuart Rosenberg. It came out in 1979. The budget was $4.7 million. The box office returns were $86.4 million, so it did awesome. No body count. As far as the naughty count goes, which is if there's like sex scenes or something, that's a new count that I came up with this week.
I like it.
There's one, and it's like some young Margot Kidder side boob coupled with maybe one of the most awkward looking sex scenes that I've ever seen.
Zero motion.
Like no motion at all. Just a brawny man on top of Margot Kidder.
It's like if you paused a NFL tackle on DVR and just sat there and watched it and they whispered sweet nothings to each other. That would be the sex scene, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, it's so bad. You want to give us a rundown of what this is all about?
Well, let's see. I'm already so bored. I'm realizing that the game is called Until Dawn, not Before Dawn. So the rundown is that this newly married couple, a woman who already had 3 kids previously from what I would assume to be a previous marriage, and a new boyfriend turned husband, purchase a house that is way too affordable for what it should be. And through a series of events, priests and nuns just bugging the fuck out in the middle of the house. They run around obliviously with a child that has an imaginary friend named Jody out of nowhere, to result in probably one of the least scariest, most boring, I can't believe I'm scrolling through Tumblr right now, I'm so fucking bored movies, with an ending that, with characters that make no sense. I loved it. It was great.
Ugh. I didn't. First of all, let's talk about the realtor. She's like the weirdest realtor ever. Like the looks that she's giving them, they're like, yeah, we're gonna talk amongst ourselves. All realtors encounter that. You know what I mean? We're like, okay, hold on, we need you to get out of the room so we don't have the pressure of you being around, where we can make an adult decision. And the look on her face, it's like a look like I may never see them again.
How fucking dare you make me leave this room right now? It was the look on her face, and I'm like, this has got to be common knowledge.
And like I think she ends up disclosing to them that, you know, this was the house where all the murders were in, and but like she never outright says it. Like they just acknowledge that at some point she disclosed it to them. She never says it in the film, which I think is that's a serious like suspension point that they could have used, and they didn't use that. They're like, oh, she could have been like, oh, by the way, 6 people were killed in this house, and the guy going, did they get anything on the carpet? And then and then that would have made it a better movie.
Well, especially because they definitely bring up the price point, and that could have been a great segue into, well, you know, the price is so low after, you know, what I discussed has gone down in this residence, and they just completely wiffle balled it, and they were just like, nah, okay.
You know, when I was a kid, I thought my house was haunted. It wasn't at all, but I was just being an idiot. But I saw this movie, and it really captured my imagination when I was younger. But watching it now, it's just not that good.
No.
Here's just another, I guess, an analogy is when I was younger, Adam Sandler had a song called "At a Medium Pace," and it was about all these like weird. It starts out like a really romantic like love song, and then it talks about all these weird sex acts, and I thought it was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like I was like 12 or 13, and I was just rolling on the floor laughing. And now I listen to it, and I'm like, "That's fucking dumb." And that's exactly how I feel about this movie.
It's like my Toll Booth Willie Adam Sandler. Same thing. I listened to it, and I'm like, God, what was wrong with me? Right.
So, doing research for this for the episode, I didn't realize that it got panned so hard because I guess maybe sometimes I falsely think that like, oh, a horror movie that came out in the 70s, it's already a classic because I've heard the name before, and it got fucking panned by critics, by everybody. I mean, it still did good at the box office, but like, and people still went to see it. It made 18 times its budget. It was a pretty good return, but like, I think I just like the idea of Amityville more than I like the actual movies. All the movies are critical flops. None of them are did extremely well among audiences or critics. They have coasted off of the box office success of this one movie. They made like 7 of them, but they're all kind of like trying to they ride the coattails of the box office success of this movie. So it's actually filmed in Tom's River. Did you know that?
Yes, I did actually. I looked into that. I was pretty shocked and upset.
Yeah. I've been by that house. One of my old bands used to play in Amityville, and it was only a couple blocks away, so we used to walk over there, and seeing those 2 windows. You know which ones I'm talking about? Those like attic windows.
The iconic attic eye windows. Yeah, the 3/4.
I mean, it's a little scary, but it's not as I mean, they make it so the movie has to make it foreboding in order to make it interesting. But anyway, how funny would it be if they made like a Amityville movie now, but it's about how people just want to come on their property, so it's like a home invasion movie.
Okay.
And like people just want to come on their property and break into their home and take pictures in the basement, and the owners have to go like buck shit and kill all the local kids. Like that would be a movie I would want to watch. Definitely more than this movie. I'm not a big fan of this. There's some high points too. Let's not be totally negative. The priest, Delaney, Father Delaney, I think his name was. He was good. He that scene where he gets attacked by the flies. That's like an iconic scene, and then the whole Get Out thing. That's a big scene, and then he has a monologue in there. That's incredible. But like. And what else was it? The crude oil stuff, like coming out of the fucking toilet. That was rad. But watching James Brolin slip into madness is entertaining too. But I don't know, man. What give me some of your thoughts on this, because I don't want to hog the mic.
Well, one thing that actually frightened me, and anybody can make fun of it, is one of my biggest fears is eyes in the darkness. So Jody out the window and the demonic eyes, that actually made me jump, even though I could tell it was like 2 laser pointers, basically. Just it didn't matter. It scared me. And one thing I will say about this movie is that the jump scares, although I'm not really entertained by them, they worked. I jumped a few times. Which to me, I don't put too much weight into movies, because jump scares could be done in a comedy if they wanted to. But I like the priest. But what really, one of the things that made me the angriest is there was literally no payoff to any build-up, which there was very little build-up to begin with towards the end. And so many characters' stories just didn't have an arc or an ending. I mean, the priest and his, like, following priest that loves him, and the detective, their stories just stopped on a park bench.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was waiting for like this end all fucking battle at the end, and like the priest was gonna come in with a cross to try and stop something, and maybe the home was gonna communicate with him, and it was gonna be this huge war of attrition, and the detective was gonna come in like balls to the wall trying to shoot his fucking revolver off because he's a quote unquote dumb detective character. And none of it. It was like, I want my dog. Oh, you got the dog. Okay, bye.
I mean, it's accurate.
That's about it. So I was thoroughly disappointed, and one of the reasons I was disappointed is because, yes, this movie does have a legend. It seems to almost have a cult following. I've never heard that it was bad, which is funny. I've always heard of it. But what makes me the most upset is that so many cultural references come from this, and one of my all-time favorite shows, The Simpsons, and I feel like every Halloween episode they reference this movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Treehouse of Horror thing. I mean, that's what it's. I mean, the name itself is supposed to be like a reference to Amityville. Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. And, like, the first ever Simpsons episode, they conversed with the house and had the bleeding walls, and it had the voices talking. You're all against us, and like even like Family Guy's done things with like the whole Jody joke, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is where this is coming from, and then I was like, okay, a cartoon actually made it scarier.
Yeah, the bleeding walls were lame. They were so lame. You could see the ducks in the wallpaper of it coming out. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't. It seemed, you just know that there was just a guy on the other end, and he was a union guy, and he was just like, oh, like, So, to me, this whole movie, and actually in my notes, I have exactly what you said before I go on to my next point. Like, it gets referenced so many times, but I've never heard anybody say that this movie is bad. Oh, you'll see the picture of the house, and it gets referred to all the time. It's in like true crime and all this other stuff. You know what I mean? To me, this movie is sort of cashing in on the like 70s possession theme. You had The Exorcist in 73, you had The Omen after that, and I'm just naming the big ones, but and because there was a lot more. But Amityville was just a way to try to lure that audience in for one more scare. No one outside the priest and Margot Kidder are particularly good in this movie. Margot Kidder is fucking hot as hell in this movie too. I'm just
holy
gonna say
shit,
it.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree.
But there's nothing scary, at all. When the house tells when the house tells the priest to get out, that's a shaker. Like, I mean, I was like, okay, because it happened so early, like that. Like, oh, that. I mean, that sets the suspense level, and it just drops dramatically. And then, like you said, it's got a few good jumps. The basement scene is a good one. The eyes, the laser pointers in the night. James Brolin is a shitty actor for the most part, man. Now you could be a shitty actor and be in a horror film, but it's like he takes himself way too seriously.
Yeah. And
that's what I felt like he was doing. So one of the things I've read on this is that nobody in this movie, involved with this movie, believed anything that the Lutzes said at all. Brolin was friends with him, and he knew he was full of shit. Margot Kidder's come around and said she hated the movie, and then if you do a little digging, it doesn't take much. You learn that the DeFeo defense attorney, for the guy who killed his family in the house, and the Lutzes cooked this story up, and it should be noted that the defense attorney got disbarred for defrauding his clients. So,
well, it should be noted that there's a gnat flying around me right now, so this should be a sign.
Go ahead, because I have one more point to make.
Okay, one of the points I want to make that I really wanted to tackle, because I feel like it's something I always rave about. The music was awful. It was bad. The soundtrack, the main theme was not creepy whatsoever, and trust me, a choir of children singing can be really fucking creepy on the drop of a hat, and it just wasn't, and no suspense was built up, and so I wanted to make that comment. But another thing I wanted to talk about is that really none of the characters were likable. I wasn't really... the kids were brats. Brolin was an asshole. Like, right from the get-go, you could tell he was, like, just a douchebag, and the wife, yes, okay, so she was attractive, and they dressed her very well too, but she was oblivious to the world. Brolin's partner was a dick and didn't really exist, and I just didn't like any of the characters, so I was just like, okay, can they die? And that's why I was so disappointed, because nobody dies.
I like the priest. The priest was the only one I liked in the whole movie.
Okay, I did like the priest. Okay, I will agree with you on that one. And I was like, well, he's gonna die, and then he didn't, and I'm like, well, catch-22. Somebody's got to die.
Somebody has to die, right? Also, I think in a lot of ways, like, this movie was so bad that it definitely opened the door for a movie like Poltergeist to come in.
Yeah.
And to supplement for the films like Shortfalls. And you'd think, like, I mean, they had such a built-in audience for this movie, too. I mean, it must have been such a letdown because the book was insanely popular at the time. I think it came out in like 77, and then it was like selling just hand over fist, so they made this movie out of it. And I mean, if you read whenever I read a book and go see a movie, obviously, for the most part, I don't necessarily believe it's always true, but for the most part, the book is always a little bit better. But it doesn't mean the movie is shit.
Completely, yeah.
It just means that the movie couldn't cover everything that the book could cover in a 2-hour span and keep your attention. I get that. And sometimes it has to push things together, like a bunch of different topics or points, into one place where they weren't linear in a linear way. But like, imagine if you read this book and you were like, oh man, I can't wait, and then you sit through 2 hours of this and you're like, Jesus, this is horrible. I gave it a 1.5 out of 5 scars. What did you give it?
I gave it a 1.5 out of 5 scars.
There it is.
I gave it the exact same score, and literally I wrote in my notes, I'm like, I'm giving it 1.5 only simply because of the cultural references and the fact that I jumped every now and then when I was like reading through Tumblr, and I just like dropped my phone for a quick second because a loud noise happened. That's why I gave it 1.5.
Yeah. I gave it the priest by himself gets a 0.5. That's the way I look at it. And then there was the Get Out thing, which was is an iconic scene, and then Hot Margot Kidder. So I think if you put all those things together, you get a 1.5.
I agree.
You are listening to Blood, Guts, and Blu-ray with Bloodbath and Brett667, the neighbor of the beast. Let us know what you think by reaching out to us. We can be found on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, or Facebook by simply searching Blood, Guts, and Blu-ray. To suggest a film or trailer you think we should discuss, or to comment on this or any other episode, send an email to bloodgutsandbluray@gmail.com. We will always get back to you. Thank you for listening to Blood, Guts, and Blu-ray, and enjoy the rest of the show.
So let's move on to It Follows. Came out in 2015. It was directed by David Robert Mitchell. The budget was $1.3 million. Box office, it did $20.6 million, so it did extremely well for its low budget. Body count is only 2. There is a naughty count of 2 boobs and a naked penis, but they're all gross. So you're naughty if you like it. Go ahead. Take it away, Brett.
How do you put this movie into context? Basically, a young, susceptible woman finds a wonderfully nice man, and they have sex together in the back of a car.
You sort of look like that guy, by the way.
I'll take that as a compliment.
That's a compliment. You're a good-looking young man.
Well, thank you. You threw me off now. Now I can't talk.
Sorry,
okay,
buddy.
so
I shower you with compliments, and this is what happens.
Oh, Lord, I'm getting the vapors. So basically, she finds out that there is some type of creature that follows the people that are inflicted with having sex, and he passes it on to her, and she needs to avoid it. It walks very slowly, and it shapeshifts into strangers or those that you love. And the only way for you to pass it on is to have sex with somebody else. And then if that person dies, it comes back after you. So without me starting to talk about it, I'd like to pass it off to you. What do you think of this movie?
I love this movie. It was my favorite movie last year.
Really?
Since it came out last year. I saw it in the theater with my wife. A friend recommended it to me. He said he loved it. He said the soundtrack is huge. And it just bend your mind. And I was like, all right, well, I'm in. And I saw it in the theater, and I loved it. Last summer, I watched it like twice, and then I've watched it. I think I've watched it 6 times in the year and a half that it's been out. So I won't give my rating yet, but
Of course not.
This is only David Robert Mitchell's second feature film. Got widespread critical acclaim. Became like the indie movie that could. It's a pretty polarizing movie, though. People love this movie or they hated it, and I think it's more cerebral than a lot of movies in the horror genre. That's why
Absolutely.
That's why I liked it so much. So one of the things that's freaky about it is that you sort of are confused about what time period you're in, and like what season it is, because they're dressing like it's late fall at one day, and then they're dressing like it's summer the next day,
and they're at a beach, which is one of the best scenes.
Oh, it's definitely one of the best scenes. And then they're like the technology. They're watching these really old movies on these really old TVs, but then the girl is like scrolling through a Kindle type device, and like a Wi-Fi device or whatever. So you're like, what the fuck are these kids doing? And of course, it takes place in Michigan, which is like, I think it's like Michigan feels like the perfect setting for a horror film, no matter where.
Oh,
you
absolutely.
are. You know, like the Midwest in general is just perfect.
Well, if somebody's going to drive a 1990 Pontiac, it's going to be in Michigan.
Right. And so you feel like you're in a dream. That's what David Robert Mitchell was trying to do. He conceived of this whole movie in a dream. So it's just all dream logic. And it feels like you kind of can identify with the characters pretty easily, and it feels like you're in a dream state just trying to outrun something the whole time. I love the wide angle shots in this movie. I thought that was like one of the things that really took me back by it. He cited George Romero and John Carpenter as major influences, which makes sense because the movie does resemble Halloween as far as perspective and mood. And the soundtrack is what takes this movie over the top.
Oh my God. The first thing I wrote was the amazingly creepy and beautiful synth. I was like, I love this soundtrack. I could download this and listen to it all day.
This movie is totally meant to scare kids away from sex.
Well, that's actually one thing that I was gonna touch on. Is I felt like the movie was really more about burgeoning sexuality, and it's interesting that you brought up the time period, because I feel like it's almost time period neutral, where anybody who watches this movie can recognize the feeling of being in that youthful, like, hormone raged age. And I don't know if it's necessarily being afraid of sex, but just, I don't even really know how to finish that sentence. Just basically like the fears that come with STDs and pregnancy almost seem to become it follows that it's that type of that societal pressure, both on the side of do not have sex, insert God, pregnancy, viruses, death, and then the other side of please do have sex, from the peer pressure and social anxiety. And I felt like that was this huge amalgamation that turned into this creature, and the movie was just so fucking uncomfortable. And it was like, oh God, I remember the first time I had sex and I was uncomfortable too. I'm uncomfortable right now. I'm going to bed.
The movie does definitely make you uncomfortable. Like it's just like in a dream. You're never comfortable in a dream, especially in one of those like freaky nightmares where something is chasing you around. You never get comfortable until you actually wake up and you're out of it.
Yep.
One of the notes that I wrote down was I love the movie theater that they go to. Where he sees the girl in the yellow dress and then they flee out. And I just love the look of the old theater and the popcorn machine and the Wurlitzer organ playing. That theater is called the Redford Theater. And that's where Evil Dead premiered for the first time, because they're all from Michigan.
Oh, really?
I didn't know that. That's wild. So what was your favorite part in this movie? Let's do that, because we didn't get a chance to do Amityville because none of us had a favorite part in the movie.
Oh, without a doubt, my favorite part was the beach scene, because I had trained my eye to that point, like, keep an eye on the background, who is walking suspiciously, softly, and slowly, and who looks out of place. And that second that girl comes round and around that corner in that path, I'm like, there it is, there it is, there it is. And they kind of flash away from her, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess she wasn't. And then the hair on her head starts going up, and the chair and the kid getting thrown. I'm like, oh my God. And it was such a quote unquote like out of body experience in the movie, which the movie had stayed away from that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the fear of the thing walking. It didn't attack. It didn't touch you. And the fact that that was like the one scene it really started touching her, I was on the edge of my seat, just like grabbing onto the side of my bed, like, holy fucking shit, what do these kids do? And I actually felt the fear, which is really hard to accomplish in a movie. I felt the fear that they were going through, and I really just wanted the scene to end, which is like, okay, this is great.
The kid coming through, like when she ducks into the boathouse and then like the bottom of the door breaks open and the kid that comes through there, that part was fucking freaky too.
Yeah. Oh, that's that whole scene. Yeah.
The part that always gets me is when she was in her room and she had locked the door, and then she unlocks it and they open it up, and then the tall guy walks through the door. The first time I saw that dude, the first time I saw it in the theater, I almost jumped out of my seat.
Oh, and totally believable.
And I looked over at Kristen and she's like, "What the fuck?" It was so creepy. Yeah, that gets me every single time. Like I look forward to that part. To me, it's as good as any kill in any slasher film. And there's a couple gross out moments too, like when homeboy gets killed by his own mom, and then they're banging. It's kind of gross.
Which they bring that back at the end, but we'll touch on that in a bit. But one of the things I did want to talk about is how it was kind of an underlying factor, how terrible the parents are in the entire family, in everybody's family. Greg, he takes the car to the beach house and he says, "Mom doesn't even know that I'm gone. She doesn't care." And Jay, they show a scene in the beginning with her mom passed out in the bed, and they show a clear, like, giant bottle of wine drunk, and it almost seems like these kids are without parents and they're kind of roving on their own. And I thought that in itself was scary because nobody trusted the authority figure, quote unquote, and that these parents, and I think even when the police come, Greg is sitting there with somebody and they're like, "Oh, well, that family is terrible.
That's his
awful.
mother. That's his mother."
Yeah, and I'm like, I thought it was really interesting how really terrible and obtuse the parents were throughout this entire movie, and they were inconsequential, where you would think with all these murders and police and rape basically going on, you'd think they would come to the forefront, and they didn't. And I thought they were kind of a part of the demon themselves.
I thought the girl that is the main character, the girl that plays Jay, off the top of my head I forget her name. This is like her first big film. She's actually like a professional kite surfer or something like that.
Yep.
But I think she's got that like girl next door looks and like the legitimate, like she's got legitimate scream pipes to be a good scream queen. If she wanted to do horror films and make a career out of doing it, like she could turn into like a Danielle Harris type and be able to pull it off. I think she does extremely well. Actually, one of my favorite parts too is when they I don't want to give too much of it away. I mean, everybody should have seen this at this point. If you haven't, you're missing out. But they figure out a way that they're gonna kill the monster. They're all like they have a plan, and they're going to the pool. And the music that plays in the background, it's like straight up showdown music.
Yep.
And it kind of gets me pumped up. I think the whole idea that they had was a pretty good idea, except for the part where Paul shoots his friend in the leg.
Yeah.
They're terrible shots in this movie. Terrible. Like she lets like 5 bullets go and totally misses this monster every time.
Which I like. I like because if some invisible creature was chasing me and I was shooting a gun at it, I would be fucking awful.
So what do you think about the end? Do you think they're actually being followed, or do you think it's just a paranoia thing?
Absolutely, they're being followed. They've shot the thing in the head numerous times. It hasn't died. I can't believe that they shot it twice in the head in the pool, and now it's suddenly dead. I feel like harken back to the last podcast, it's kind of a Babadook scenario where it's still there. They may be ignoring it, or they may have a plan on how to avoid it, but it's still there.
The director, who's also the writer for this, has been very cheeky and coy with interviewers. He hasn't been really giving anything away as to what it is, whether it's about sex or just a vivid dream or mortality or all of it or none of it. So he's leaving a lot to suggestion, which is good because there's word that a sequel is being developed, and I'd be interested in seeing that because I love this movie so much, and he's super smart not to do that. Like, I wouldn't say a word. Like, when somebody asks him like what it is, I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what else did I have on this? What was your rating for this?
Well, what's funny, actually, before I even say the rating, is when I walked away from the movie, I felt like it was good, and I was happy I'd seen it, and then I was kind of like, well, it didn't really do anything new, and sometimes it dragged on a decent amount, so I'm going to give it a 3.3 out of 5, and then I sat around in my office and would, like, walk around, like, go get something to eat, and somebody walking down the street, and I'd like recall the movie. So the more and more I've thought about it and sat on it for the week, it's up to a 4 out of 5. I got it up to a 4 out of 5. It's been on my mind. It's getting scarier the more it sits in the back of my brain.
It's a hard movie to shake.
Yeah.
And because of that, I give it a 5. It's one of my favorite movies.
I am the devil.
And I really loved it. I since the first time I saw it, I knew it was one of those movies I was going to watch over and over again and look for things I missed. There's not a lot of movies that do that to me, and I really love this movie. So 5 out of 5 for me.
Nice. I just do 4 out of 5. I feel like it dragged a little bit in some points, but fantastic filmmaking, and I can't wait to watch it again and see if my score goes up.
Cool. It's time to talk about Dead Snow now.
Woohoo!
Let's see. Dead Snow came out in 2009. It was directed by Tommy Wirkola. He also wrote it. The budget for it was $800,000. It did $1.985 million, so it basically did $2 million in the box office. Body count is 9 plus a ton of zombies, and the naughty count is a surprising goose egg. There's no naked anything. We're close. We get close once, but not close enough.
But that naughty count right there should be a 1, considering it's way better than the frozen dry hump that we talked about earlier. Because it actually looked like they were actually having sex, even though, the whole bra.
Oh, yeah. We'll give it a half. How about that?
I like that.
We'll give it a half. We can do half points. It's our show. We can do what we want.
Exactly.
Go ahead and give the synopsis.
Oh my goodness! I just want to talk about all the funny things. Basically,
I was just going to come out and say that I like this movie a lot. So.
I really do too. As my woohoo happened before, but a couple of young adults decide that instead of going to the beach, they're going to go to a snowy cabin, which is in a mountain that they find out from an old man had a lot of turbulence going on during World War II with the Nazis, and that the locals decided to take it upon themselves and chase the Nazis into the forest, in which they died because of their greed and their riches, and they come down and torture these young adults, resulting in probably one of the funniest quote-unquote horror spoofs. I hate saying that because it's people think like scary movie, and I'm like, no. One of the funniest movies I've seen, great effects, and just so fucking enjoyable. I don't have any other words for it. Just enjoyment from the beginning to end. So much fun.
I can't agree with you more. Can we do an episode from the Arctic Circle? Can we figure that out? We have to do one at some point, right? I mean, we should.
I would love to do that.
Just go up there and bring all of our stuff. Norwegians must be totally okay with hiking. I mean, especially in that area, because that's what they drive all day to get there, and then the one guy just jumps on a snowmobile and is like, "See you losers later." It's 45 minutes. Follow the tracks.
Follow my tracks, bro.
But which is kind of cool because they're walking up there and you start to get a feel for like what the characters are all about, and they're like playing around in the snow. I like every character in this movie.
Yep, me too.
And how much did you want to make out with that chick that like was going or tit for tat with the chubby guy about horror movies? I thought that was pretty cool.
The super hot girl that decided to choose the nerdiest one and have it be legitimate and not a joke. Yeah, she was really attractive because she was actually attentive to him. And when they said he's the biggest movie buff and movie nerd out of them all, she had a little glint in her eye. I'm like, oh my god, I might have found a new movie crush.
Seriously. The humor in this foreign film, this is Norwegian, translates extremely well, and usually that's something that gets lost on an American audience. Like we can't, there's no humor in German films, and I mean it usually gets lost in the translation. Like I said, I don't hate any characters. They seem like they were a lot of fun, and actually until that Martin guy tries to smother his dreadlock girlfriend with a pillow. That
was kind of a dick move.
That was kind of a weird. But that's when she tells you that she's claustrophobic, which you find out later that she has a couple claustrophobic moments. The guy,
or Roy, who was pegged as the horn dog, who turned out to probably be my favorite character, who had the best one-liners as the movie went forward, or at least just scenes.
Yeah, him and Martin.
Yep,
they were good. The guy who directed this is the guy who directed Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, which I don't know if you've seen that yet, but it's supposed to be really, really funny. I haven't seen it either. He knew he wanted to make a zombie film, and he wanted to put a spin on it, so he was just like sitting around with his people, like going like, what's worse than zombies? Nazi zombies. And that's basically the best way that ideas happen. It's just like, he's probably just sitting around like drinking beers and doing whatever. I like how it's a bit of a spin on the run-of-the-mill Nazi story. He didn't or zombie story, excuse me. He didn't fill up with like there's no chemical spill, there's no voodoo. These zombies are straight up cursed, and they can only break the curse if they get the gold. It's like a video game. And actually the idea of it came from the Call of Duty Nazi zombie bullshit thing that they do. Got mixed reviews though. I was surprised. Well, no, not really, because there's too many people who watch The Walking Dead and stuff, and they're like, oh, zombies. Their definition of zombie is totally fucking narrow. Yeah, I'm hogging the mic. Go ahead.
The first thing I want to talk about was the humor. It was extremely well done. It was classy. It was sophisticated. It was very referential. I mean, with the Indiana Jones references, the Arnold references, and just even simple things like, I think it was either Martin or Roy running towards the zombies, and they had the hammer and sickle. Like,
yeah, that part was awesome.
It was so quick. It was so quick, and then, like, I was like, oh my god, that shit was really funny. But it wasn't like, oh, zoom in on this joke, ha ha. Like, just watching Roy throw the Molotov cocktail into the side of the wall and not into the window, like, I died laughing, and he delivered one of my all-time favorite quotes when they all stopped, and he yelled out in Norwegian, I told you we should have went to Sunny Beach. And it's such it's a comedy trope, but it was done so fucking well that I had to pause the movie and play it back and hear it again and laugh again. I'm like, okay, this is hysterical. And even towards one of the best scenes of the movie is Martin and Roy going after all the zombies out in the snow with the chainsaw. And they just flash to Roy just smashing an already dead zombie who's on his knees, just smashing him in the face with a hammer. I mean, I died laughing. And the actors knew they were in this movie to be funny, but they didn't act funny. They was just so well done. I can't praise it enough.
Absolutely. I think my favorite kill though was when they I think it's not the first kill, but when they kill the Wanderer, because that guy was horrible. If he came into my cabin and goes, "Who made this coffee?" "Well, it sucks." I would have beat his fucking ass. I mean, are you serious? And he's telling a story and he's like rolling up a cigarette, because I guess when you tell a story and you roll a cigarette, it makes it legit.
In that and may I quote, in that fancy little sweater he was wearing.
They all have the best sweaters up there, man.
Yes, they do.
I also like the part where they open the box of gold and it lights them all up like fucking Pulp Fiction. I thought that was a nice touch.
Lots of references in this movie.
One of the weirdest part is the nerd guy Erland. He goes outside to take a shit because it's an outhouse, and he is met with this beautiful girl who is into the same things that he is. Like, he is out kicking his fucking coverage with her, bro. She's way out of his league, and he is just got done taking a shit.
Yeah, and she's all about it.
And she's like, "I don't care." Like that. Hold on. Why would you hook up with somebody while they're taking a shit in an outhouse in the Arctic Circle, and then she takes a shit and then falls in the shit that she's taking, and then dies? Like that. She just had the worst 15 minutes that you could possibly have. She spent 14 of them in a fucking outhouse. It's terrible.
But you know what, though? I think a lot of this comes from the fact that we're jealous that, hot girls didn't come bang us in outhouses when we were in the Arctic Circle.
No, they did not.
They did not.
I love his reaction to, like, when the zombies finally come in, like he's been expecting it.
Yep.
Because he's watched too many movies. He's like, "Don't get bit." And it's funny too, because he's wearing when he gets killed, he's wearing a Brain Dead shirt. And it's not the Brain Dead that you and I know and love, also known as Dead Alive.
Yeah.
It is the Brain Dead from 2007, which is an Australian film. But the way that he dies, where he gets his like head just mutilated, is the same way that is the same as the first kill from that movie of the shirt that he's wearing, which I thought was
really.
Yeah.
I thought it was very Thing-esque, like it almost looked like very like the goo and the stop motion. I felt very reminiscent of the Thing goo horror. That I loved it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because my next note was that the effects in this movie were surprisingly very good for the low budget that it was. I thought that it was really, really well done. The blood is just everywhere. I mean, that's the kind of thing you need to take a movie like this as it is. It's campy, it's funny. There's unrealistic, ridiculous gore that just makes it fun. The Nazis make it more evil. It's a good movie. It's a what a bummer to find your girlfriend's head, though, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's got to be rough. And then that dude, he actually might be one of my favorite characters in the movie as well, because he's like a man's man, dude. He's riding around on a fucking snowmobile, just doing jumps and shit, bleeding. He's stitching himself up.
That was gross.
And then he mounts a fucking machine gun on there and takes out a bunch of zombies.
Loaded a 50 cal on like a fucking oh my god, it was amazing.
But actually, another one of my favorite parts is when one of the Nazis bites his jacket and then he just has all that fluff in his mouth and he's like spitting awkwardly.
I like how he bites it too, where he's having a normal conversation with Martin after Martin just sawed off his arm and like cauterized it, and they're just like, "Hey, sup? How you doing? Good." Like it was like, oh, the most badass character in this movie just died for small talk. Like that's why he's dead.
That's another great part too, is when he's like, "Oh, Erland said not to get bit," and so he cuts off his own arm. The look on his face after he's done chainsawing his own arm off and cauterizing it, the look on his face is fucking hilarious. He looks like he's like psychotic, like he's on another level.
Yep.
Ugh, it's so good.
Definitely one more scene I want to talk about, which was like like laying on my bed crying laughing was watching the super vegan dreadlock girl smash a crow to death on a tree. I can't even finish the sentence because she was so like, well, the coffee's organic and this is what we're gonna eat, and to watch her smash a crow to death because she was scared that the zombies would find her, the scene was so well done, I just died laughing.
And then she throws the crow at one of the zombies.
yes, she does.
It's funny too, because if you come into my house, like that's, like I'm snooty like that. Like, yeah, the coffee's organic. These burritos are vegan. So I can relate, but I would totally smack if it was me or the crow or the zombies. I mean, no question. Crow's gotta go.
So you may be her in this movie, and I may be Erland.
I mean, we are what we are, right? So
we all want to be Martin, but we can't all be Martin.
We can't all be Martin. Some of us got to be Roy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the We All Wish We Could Be Martin podcast.
Starring me, Martin.
And me, Martin's arm.
Actually, you know what was one of the really cool parts that I can't recall having ever seen done before is the zombies eating that girl, and like she's still alive while they're like ripping her apart, and then she blows them all up. But I've never seen that before, so I thought that's one of the things that make this movie cool, because they did try to do a couple things a little bit differently. They tried
with the steel grenades or whatever. She takes the German grenade and blows them all up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the Tommy Wirkola gets props here because he tried to tell a different story using something that we all know. He gave the Nazis a different origin. He gave them a different backstory. And he totally acknowledged, by having a character like Erland in there, acknowledged the history of Nazis, and then threw it all out the window. Like, oh, if you get bit, you're going to become a Nazi. Probably not.
No.
But with the way that, you know, it panned out. But I thought that was really cool. I think, do I have any more? Yeah, real comical movie. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
He's sick.
That's, believe it or not, that's exactly what I gave it. I gave it a 3 out of 5, a 3.5 out of 5. Loved it. One of the things I did want to actually go against it is there was a huge missed opportunity, is that during the time where Martin and Roy are fighting the zombies and Martin's considering chopping off his dick, they go into...
There's no subtle way to put that.
No. They mention a quick tidbit and say that Martin's half Jewish, and I was really hoping... that was
awesome.
But I was really hoping that when he gave the Nazis the box at the end, that he stole all the gold and drove off in the distance. I was really hoping they would play on that trope, and they didn't. And I was like, oh, they should have carried that more, because that would have been even funnier. But yeah, the movie was fantastic. I give it 3.5. You know, it was, but if this was a comedy podcast, it might have gotten a 4.5.
Agreed. I haven't seen. It's been out for a while. I haven't seen the sequel. It's also on Netflix.
It's got better ratings, actually.
It does have better ratings. So, but I think they had more money to play around with.
What's it called? Blacker and Red or something like that.
Red versus Dead, and it's got Soviet zombies and Nazi zombies.
I'm watching that movie just for fun.
I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Nice.
You are listening to Blood, Guts, and Blu-ray with Bloodbath and Brett667, the neighbor of the beast. We are dedicated to bringing you the show across your favorite medium. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and YouTube. Please send all suggestions to bloodgutsandbluray@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.
The final film of our 4 here is Return of the Living Dead. It was directed by Dan O'Bannon. It came out in 1985. The budget for it was $4 million. In the box office, it did $14.24 million. Body count is 40 plus most of the population of Louisville, Kentucky. Naughty count is 1 naked dancing chick in a graveyard.
Who stays naked for pretty much all the film.
Yeah. Do you want to do a synopsis? I have fun facts to point out before we really go into it, but a synopsis would be better first.
All right, synopsis is basically a stupid lowly punk gets a job at a what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it. Not a crematorium.
Medical supply
where they have the bodies and half-cut dogs, and him and some idiot decide they're going to look at these tanks that were accidentally sent to them from the military that had some sort of crazy serum that allowed the dead bodies to come back to life. And these fucking morons slap on the side of it, break open the serum, decide to burn the body because, hey, yeah, I mean, this shit is done through the air. Let's burn it into the atmosphere. All the while, some dirty, lowly punks in their scary cars and their chains and their leather jackets are hanging out at a cemetery, and then shit goes fucking bananas and absolutely hysterical. And I have a fun fact, too, about this movie, and I hope you don't use it because I was really stoked about reading it, and I was really excited to talk about it.
Do yours first. I always do mine first. You go first.
From what I've read, so I don't really know if this is completely accurate, but I really hope it is that this movie, this goofy, funny little romp, is where the thought originated that zombies want to eat brains.
That is true.
I absolutely love that. I mean, they even kind of delved into it in the movie with the half zombie female, and they talked about her, that it takes away their pain, which in a weird way was actually really serious in the middle of kind of a goofy comedy horror movie, which is very self-aware, extremely self-aware. And the fact that there's this well-known fact that zombies eat brains now, I was like, I can't believe that this thought originated from such a fun movie and not an actually frightening movie that has fantastic music.
Yeah, the soundtrack to this is really good too.
Amazing.
One of the cool things about this too is that they, in the beginning of it, like, this is based on a true story, which is what I think. I mean, we know that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre did that as well, which is not true at all. But there, in this universe, the Night of the Living Dead is a movie like you've seen it, I've seen it, the audience has seen it, but they're like, no, that was based on a true story. You know that, right? Like, it was like Pulp Fiction, you know. So where that originates from is John Russo was the collaborator with George Romero on Night of the Living Dead. They parted ways after that movie, so Romero retained the rights to end all of his film titles as with like
of the Living Dead or something.
Dawn of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Day of the Dead. So anything that ends in of the Dead after Night of the Living Dead is George Romero, and then the Living Dead thing is not him. So back then, if you were into horror and you knew the difference in the title, because these movies didn't exactly get a lot of TV spots, you know, like word of mouth was really important. Like you said, this is the first time zombies specifically go after brains. The guy who wrote and directed this, Dan O'Bannon, also wrote Alien.
Really?
This was his first directorial debut. He only directed one other movie called The Resurrected. He also was either writer or co-writer on Total Recall, Life Force, Invaders from Mars. So he had a pretty solid resume. He wrote this movie as well, and he just wanted it to be completely separate. He wanted it to be just go in a totally different direction as from the George Romero movies. So ultimately, what you get is a really funny movie without any real message.
Yep.
They make fun of the army, like the whole beginning of the movie. They're like, typical army fuck up. They're fucking idiots, and they keep going on and on about the army, and then at the end, the army kills all of them.
And they show the army guy with the wife and how he seems like such a fucking asshole. Like, he's just by the books. Well, honey, I need to be on call 24/7, and I already ate this food, and fuck you. And then he doesn't appear till the end, where it's just like, oh, okay, boop.
So they really got like a ragtag cast for this movie too. James Karen, the guy who you referred to as an idiot, his character's name is Frank. He was a soap opera actor, and he was the spokesman for Pathmark. And in my opinion, he's the best character in the whole movie. I love him.
Oh, without
he's
a
like
doubt.
Don
Without
Knotts.
a doubt.
He's like Don Knotts. Him and Freddy are like Abbott and Costello together. Like,
Absolutely.
oh, jeez.
Oh, God, why do we do this?
And then...
What do you mean we don't have a pulse?
I could operate that goddamn thing.
Yeah.
The guy who plays Bert, Clu Gallagher, he was in a bunch of westerns, and he admitted that he'd been in like 300 things throughout his life, and that this is the one that everybody knows. James Karen goes on vacation, like if he goes on a cruise or something, no matter where he gets off or wherever, somebody yells out like, "Send more cops, send more paramedics,
send more paramedics."
So, it's one of my favorite movies. My history with this movie is I saw it for the first time when I was 8 years old, and the Tarman zombie scared the bejesus out of me. Like seeing it for the first time. So if you're a little kid, this is a very scary movie. When you are older, it is the fucking best movie ever.
Yep.
I love how, like I said, I love how they take shots at the army, and then the army is the one that gets them in the end.
Yep.
They sort of all foreshadow their own death in a way. Like Frank says, "Oh, I can operate that," when they're in the crematorium, and he's like, "I can operate that thing," and then he ends up operating it on himself later.
On himself.
And then like that girl Trash is like, "Oh, I always have these nightmares of these old men grabbing at me," and then she gets attacked by a bunch of zombies.
Well, she doesn't go ugh. She's really more like groping.
She's into it.
She's
into it. She is sexy, man.
Oh hell
she
yeah,
looks
dude.
Very, very. She looks hideous now in real life, but back then she was a total smoke show. It's one of the best parts of the whole movie. So yeah, I'm taking up too much time. You go now. You go. Your turn.
My turn. Yeah, I absolutely love the movie. I did love the fact that it didn't have a purpose or a point. There was no political stance, which is really where horror movies kind of stem from, is to kind of play on your fears of what is in the real world. I found it thoroughly enjoyable. Sometimes, to give some negatives, I felt like the camp kind of weighed on me a little bit. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've seen a lot of movies in this vein before, so I loved it, absolutely adored it, but it didn't have a lot of like shining moments like we discussed with Dead Snow. You and I can talk about, look at this scene, look at that scene, but I just sat there thoroughly enjoying it, and the acting was very well done, but bar none, the best scene for me is the cop waving in, the cop zombie waving in the other cops. I mean, that was like, I just died laughing. And
send more paramedics is like one of the best lines in
send more paramedics is like
horror.
On IMDb. It's like on IMDb as the main quote. Send more. And one thing I definitely do want to discuss too, especially not just the brains thing, but the fact that the zombies were intelligent. I really enjoyed that. I'm sure this wasn't the first film to do it, but I like the fact that they set up like pincer traps, and they knew like the points where people can come in, and I like the idea of the intelligent zombie, and I always have. I don't like the brambling idiot zombie. I like the smart, conniving zombie.
Yeah.
And that added in with the punks, who, by the way, great portrayal of punks. I mean, there was the whiny fucking asshole that drove the car. "Man, you guys just invite me out to drive everywhere. Let's go party somewhere, man." Like, it was just so fucking funny because of the culture and everything. And, you know, you and I have hung around and we've gone to some shows, we listened to some music, and just the fact that they were more human, and they weren't just like, "Man, we want to practice Satanism, and we want to like
let's go hang out in the graveyard."
No, it was really like let's get fucked up while we wait for our friend to get out of work. So I kind of like that. I kind of like that level of man, why are we here? We should be getting drunk. Oh, she's naked. Cool.
Freddy always knows where the party's at.
Which, by the way, Freddy has never proven where the party is actually at in this movie, which is great.
I don't even know if Freddy knew there was a party.
No clue.
You can't have an 80s... in the 80s, you can't have a cult movie unless you have at least one punk. If you have one punk in your movie, then it's a cult classic. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. And you need to
I do like... Sorry,
oh, you're good.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You have to have a...
I do...
Oh, hold on. You also have to have a surfy, spooky soundtrack to go with that. So...
Yep.
Which is what they have.
And I do like the fact that there were some preppies in the group that were kind of like on the offset, and like there's like a little preppy kid that was trying to get with the girl, and it was a very diverse group actually, which was very fun.
So the main girl, there's a really funny story about this. So Dan O'Bannon knew that like filming was going to be like brutal because it was going to be cold, it was going to be rainy, you know, the whole thing. So he knew that he wanted to have a lead actress with some grit. So he held the auditions at his house, and basically he was scheduling them in to come in for appointments. And the girl who plays I forget her name in the movie, but the main chick in the movie, she shows up for her appointment, and the doors open, and he's got all these guns laid out, and a bunch of TVs with porno on them, and then and just to make her uncomfortable. And to test her mettle or whatever. That's one of the... I think I saw it in a documentary about the film. And, yeah, but the filming here was brutal. Apparently him and Clu Gallagher, the guy who played Bert, they fought viciously, like, the whole time. The crew, actually, every weapon that Clu Gallagher has in the movie is made of rubber because he was attacking Dan O'Bannon with the real weapons, like a real baseball bat. He was chasing him around the set. The actors were getting hypothermia from the rain and everything. Some of the people playing zombies actually had to eat calf brains, and O'Bannon didn't want them to think that they had to do something that he wasn't willing to do, so he also ate the calf brains.
Good for him.
There's a lot of send more paramedics, send more cops. I mean, what else can you say? There's a couple of like little cool parts in there too, like the chapel's called like Wee Chapel of the Dawn. I thought that was pretty cool.
I did notice that. It's in my notes. Yeah, We the Chapel of Dawn.
And one of my favorite parts is when that legless zombie runs after Ernie.
Oh my god, yeah, he hops after Ernie.
Oh,
yep.
It freaks me out every single time I see it. And that's a real guy that doesn't have any legs. He hopped up on his stumps and chased him as far as he could. It's wild.
I believe that. Yeah, that there was no CGI in that.
So, and Frank and Freddy are basically dead the whole movie, and all the pain they're experiencing and stuff is them rotting. They've been dead since they were killed the moment that they opened the canister, and then they woke up.
Well, they didn't really open it. They really didn't open it. They just had a bro slap on the side of it.
The Army Corps of Engineers made this. And then you're right. He slaps it and it comes open. And then when they breathed that in, they were dead right away. And then when they woke up, they were like, "Oh my god, I feel terrible." They were already dead, and then they were starting to decompose. So, what's your rating?
I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I wasn't...
You've seen one too many.
Oh my god, this is the best movie ever made, but god, I enjoyed watching the whole thing.
I give it a 5.
I am the devil.
It's one of my favorites.
And I am here to do the devil's work.
It's one of those movies that I can always put on. I'll put it on right now. I'll watch it all the way through because I laugh every single time. And mainly I'm laughing at Frank and Freddy. Like the way their reaction, like when he's talking to him about, like he's like, "You want to see where the bodies are?" Like,
I totally do, sir.
I was laughing so hard. Don't you call me an idiot. If you want to keep your job, keep this job.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of I don't have the nostalgia, but watching such a dated movie and having it be so thoroughly enjoyable, I give it a 3.5. I laughed at a lot of scenes. I thought I dragged on a lot. It was really good in the beginning and the end. There were some middle parts that were just kind of meh. But I mean, the paramedics and the cops. I mean, please just call them all. Call them all, and they can come make me change my rating.
So that's gonna do it for this installment. Last episode we kind of picked randomly at the end of the show. We're not going to do it this time. We sort of have a theme. We were going to do Shark Week, but Shark Week is like right now, and we would basically be 2 weeks too late. So me and Brett are going to name the next episode The Summer Bummer, and we already picked out some sweet summer horror movies. We're going to do Friday the 13th, Sleepaway Camp, Psycho Beach Party, and Piranha 3D.
I'm like clutching my ankles right now. I'm so excited.
Have you seen any of those? I know you've seen Friday the 13th.
I've seen Friday the 13th, of course.
Yeah. Have you seen the other three?
Nope. Can't wait.
Oh, dude, you're gonna love. All right, so I have not seen Psycho Beach Party yet. I'll be straight with you. I haven't seen it. I saw it on TV. And I knew it was something. I saved it, or I saw it on Netflix or Hulu or one of those. So I saved it because I'm like, yeah, this is right up my alley. And I cannot wait to watch it. That's going to be the first one of the 4 that I watch, for sure.
I literally like walked up to my manager and I'm like, I can't wait to read to you the movies that I'm going to be reviewing for the next go around. And she's like, they sound terrible. I'm like, I know. I can't wait. It's going to be great. I love it.
So...
Well, Friday the 13th obviously isn't, but yeah.
Yeah, Friday the 13th is I don't think... I mean... I really have to go through them all again because... So I thought there were certain... I'm not going to say which numbers, but there were certain Halloween ones that were like in the middle because there's 10 Halloween films. And like somewhere in the middle, I was like, you know what? Because I remember watching them as a kid, so there was like a nostalgia factor in there. I was like, yeah, those ones are good. And then I watched them all last weekend, every one of them, all 10 of them, and I was like, these fucking suck. What was I thinking? So Friday the 13th, if you ask me now, I don't think that the first one is the best one. I'm a pretty big fan of the 4th and the 5th one, but we'll see. Who knows? I'm gonna have to watch them all. The DVD box set for all the Blu-ray box set for all the Friday the 13th movies is like $299. I'm not spending $300 on 12 movies. I'm not doing it.
Holy shit.
By comparison, the DVD box set for all the Nightmare on Elm Streets is like $30. So, or the Blu-ray box
way
set.
Better value.
And I only buy Blu-ray. So, that's gonna do it. What do you say?
Sounds good. I think it's been a pleasure. I mean, we've had some laughs. We've cried. We've jumped up and down. It's been great.
And I drank a whole Slurpee.
I've called the paramedics right now, so you know I'm feeling pretty good.
Have yourself a wonderful 4th of July, and we will talk to you soon. You'll hear from us soon. I fucked up that ending really bad. Have a good 4th of July, and we're leaving now.
Thank you for listening to Blood, Guts, and Blu-ray with Bloodbath and Brett 667, the neighbor of the beast. Written by Brett and Bloodbath. Edited and produced by Bloodbath. Music has been graciously provided by the Slasher Film Festival Strategy from album Psychic Shield, available now on Death Waltz Originals. Artwork and logo have been provided by Bruce Tedford. Blood, Guts, and Blu-ray is available on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and YouTube. Be sure to follow us on Facebook as well as @BloodGutsBluRay on Twitter, @BloodGutsAndBluRay on Instagram, and visit our Tumblr page by going to bloodgutsandbluray.tumblr.com. For any questions regarding the show, advertising, or anything else, please send an email to bloodgutsandbluray@gmail.com. Thanks again, get the Zap.